Part 4. International Perspective. 3 international experts were invited to join the National Steering Committee because of their expertise in qualification systems and frameworks. They represented countries with differing education systems. The involvement of international experts is an important aspect to building confidence and trust in the referencing process. Karita Blomqvist works in the National Board of Education Finland and is the current president of the Bureau of Lisbon Recognition Convention Committee.
We are the national coordination point for qualifications frameworks, Europass Center in Ignaric, and national coordination point for professional qualifications directive. As I see it, the international expert, the main task is to support the national authorities in preparing the report, which will be understood by those who are not familiar with the qualification system of the country. Being outsiders, the international experts can also bring some objective views to discussions. Some of them also have experience from their own countries or from other countries, so they might bring in a bit of light peer learning exercise which might help the national authorities in preparing their report. The broader goal and purpose for involving international experts is to add to the overall credibility and trust towards the national frameworks as well as the EQF itself. I was given a very broad role by the Irish authorities. I participated in meetings, in discussions of the referencing committee. I was also invited to give written comments on the draft report, and my comments were mainly on the qualification system, Irish qualification system, and how to explain it, some details to the outsiders. I think my comments were really well taken into account, and I feel I have truly contributed to the Irish report. The starting point for the Irish process was very good, since Ireland already had the national framework for 6 years. It was also exciting because it was the first process that was conducted under the criteria and procedures established by the EQF advisory group, so as such it was interesting. The Irish referencing process was, I think it was extremely well managed, coordinated, and all the documents and meetings were well prepared, so it was easy to participate in it. And in the end, I think the final outcome, the referencing report, is very transparent, it's clear, and it serves very well its purpose.
Wilfred Boomgert works for the Flemish Ministry of Education and Training in Belgium. Wilfred is a member of the EQF advisory group and of several European groups and networks for enhanced cooperation in vocational education and training in Europe.
The involvement of international experts in the referencing process is one of the 10 criteria for referencing to the EQF, and it's a very important criterion. The reason is that we have to create mutual trust between 33 countries of Europe to make qualifications comparable. And as you have experienced in Ireland with the Irish framework, it takes a lot of time to get trust in the framework. So you can imagine that for more than 30 countries, it's not easy to create mutual trust. So this is an incremental process with different steps. And the first step is to invite 2 or 3 international experts in a national steering committee and to have a first reaction on the draft referencing report. The next step is to present a draft referencing report to the European Advisory Group with representatives of these 33 countries. And finally, the last step is to make public the national referencing report on the European EQF website. What's the role of the international experts in the National Steering Committee? It's not an easy duty. They have to check the transparency and the credibility of what is written down by national experts. and they have to look for crucial parts in this report and give feedback, because they have as first a view from abroad, from externally the country. And I must say that the comments of these international experts are always leading to changes, to redrafting reports, and are leading, I hope, to more understandable reports for the wider European community. Well, I have until today read about 6 national reports, and I must say the transparency criterion is one of the most important ones. Referencing to EQF is not a matter of just comparing descriptors of the European framework with national descriptors. There is a lot of other work to be done. And one of the things is that at least the following issues should be made transparent. The first one is to give very detailed information on the national framework. Second one is to give a site on the quality assurance arrangements. Then we have to know also how curricula are developed, how learners are assessed. And last but not least, we should have a site on how particular qualifications are connected to the framework. So that's a whole package of topics and issues, and they have to be written down in a concise report. Just looking, finding a balance between giving a complete picture and not going too much in detail. The only exception concerning going into detail is to give very detailed information on the technical comparison of the 2 framework descriptors. That's a must. I must say that the Irish referencing report can be seen as a model. It was the first reference report made public on European level, and it can be used as a model for other countries. Why? Well, the Irish report has found a good balance between giving a global picture and giving the reader an opportunity to find more detailed information by clicking on links in the text, so towards more dedicated website where you can find more detailed information. Of course, paper documents are not sufficient to create mutual trust. We also need platforms to discuss, to get into contact with the national representatives. The first one is the National Steering Committee for Referencing. The second one is the European Advisory Group, EQF. And it's now getting a series of referencing reports from about 10 countries now, that we can compare the reports, that we see if the qualifications are really comparable. And this is also leading, hélas, to new questions and challenges. To give just 2 examples, one of the questions arising now is what's the exact relationship between the European Directive 2005/36 on the access to regulated professions and the European Qualifications Framework? Or another question is, how can non-European frameworks be connected to national frameworks or to the European framework? For example, the Australian Qualification Framework, how can it be connected to the Belgian, Irish, French framework, and how can it be linked this way to the European Qualification Framework? These are new challenges, new topics rising now.
Mike Coles is an expert on qualification systems and has worked in the UK and internationally. He has been involved with the EQF since its inception, and his CEDAFOP report on zones of mutual trust and reference levels for Europe was influential in the formation of the EQF.
Well, the referencing process is critically important, and people use words like crucial and critical in a sort of loose way sometimes, but it really is in the case of the EQF, because the whole EQF process depends on trust between users of the translation system. And if you don't have trust, then the system will simply not be used. People develop their own ways of relating one qualification system to another. So without good referencing and without paying attention to it, it actually challenges the whole EQF project. it's as important as the 8 levels and the descriptors. The international experts are part of the whole process of developing trust, and there are 10 criteria which each country has to respond to in their referencing process. One of these means that they must involve international experts. And if you like, it's a kind of an international expert from the viewpoint of the country doing the referencing is a critical friend. It's someone who brings a different perspective to the way that the country's qualification system references to the EQF. And in some ways they can be critical and advise and try to ask the country to describe things or do things in a way which they know will be trusted outside the country. But they have quite a difficult role because they also have to look back. So they don't just advise the country in terms of the best way of referencing, but they also have to bear in mind that lots of people are going to read this report and decide whether they trust the referencing or not. So they have to have an awareness of the kinds of questions and issues which are likely to be raised by all of the people in all the other countries who will look at the referencing process. So it's a very difficult role and one which is really critical to trust. They will ask questions like, have all the stakeholder groups in the country been consulted? Have they all signed up to this process? Has the steering group made decisions based on good evidence? Have all the technical factors been done correctly? Have all the social factors, the ones which are about the real use of qualifications in the country, been taken into account? So is the hierarchy of qualifications, for example, as reference to the EQF, one which the country would recognise as being in the right order? So they have a really fundamentally important role in building up trust. And in the Irish authorities, the National Qualifications Authority for Ireland took this role very seriously and built a team of experts who could cover all the bases in terms of being critical friends and knowing other systems in other countries. So they were more confident that their report would be trusted outside Ireland. The EQF Advisory Group is another critically important function of the EQF project. This group is made up of one member from each member state and in fact the countries in the European Free Trade Area. So there are 32 country representatives, plus the social partners, the representatives of business, the representatives of the higher education area, and all of these people sit around a table and discuss issues and right now are working their way through a whole range of referencing reports coming in from countries. Now this group represents, if you like, a consensus of what's important in terms of the ingredients of trust. So a report goes to this group, the EQF Advisory Group. It first of all goes in outline and is presented as a proposal, a provisional, if you like, a provisional report. And then a few weeks, months later, it goes as a full report which takes into account the views of the EQF Advisory Group and may also take into account views expressed by independent bodies like the Council of Europe and CEDEFOP. And this process of perusal of these reports in this systematic way leads to, hopefully will lead to greater levels of trust. So the EQF Advisory Group can't be underestimated as a key driver of trust in the whole system. I mean, there's never been a report passed where there's been major issues so far. But generally that's the end of the process when it's fully discussed by the EQF Advisory Group. And this is why trust is so important, because there is no kind of legal kind of force on anybody to do something from a country to make a report more acceptable. It's just got to be seen as acceptable to the 32 member states and the social partners around the table at the EQF Advisory Group. So you can see that it's all about trust. And if something is wrong, then the pressure is a peer pressure, not a legal pressure. It's a pressure from people asking questions about whether a qualification is properly levelled within the national system and whether the country then responds to this peer pressure. And that's the whole way that the EQF works. It's one of trust and understanding the way other people view your own national qualification system.